It was around 11 at night. The weather wasn't good. It was going to rain, yet you had no idea where you were. It was supposed to be a short school trip to the national park, and you were supposed to be home by now. Not in some forest at stark midnight, surrounded by thick, dense trees, lost, alone, and frightened to no limits. You dialed the helpline once again, 7 times that hour, so they can help you find a way out. Your heart was thumping against your chest very fast, your legs shaking in fear. Hello, hello, can you hear me now? You lifted the phone in the air, trying to get some signals. The line rang, and soon someone picked the call. Yes, we can hear you. Now please tell us where exactly you are so we can send some help. A male voice cracked through the speakers, a bit unstable, still better than nothing. I don't know. Like I said, there are a lot of trees here. I don't see anything safe around here. I'm very scared. I think I went a little too far from the camp at the national park, you said fearfully. It was very dangerous to be out in a forest among all sort of creatures that could easily prey on you. All right, just stay with us. We can get you back. Are you wearing any scent blockers? We wouldn't want any unnecessary attention from rogue wolves. I'm not wearing any blockers. Are they going to kill me? You cried harder. There was no way a wild animal would not tear you apart the moment they saw you. No, you'll be fine. We'll get there, don't worry. We've traced your location. Just stay there. Better if you can climb a tree so no wild animals can reach you. I can try. You looked at a tree nearby and thought, how would you climb it? Also, about the scent blocker, just get some water and... The line went dead. You looked at the phone in horror. No, please, no. You cried when you realized your phone battery just died. What do I do? Please, Moongoddess. I'm so scared. You slid down against a tree, your face cupped in your hands as you cried your eyes out. Oma, Appa, please come save me. You held your knees to your chest and continued to cry. I'm so scared. Right that moment, a weird feeling took over you. Something did not feel right. A pain shot up from your spine and you immediately clutched your stomach. No, don't be it. Don't be it. Not now. Much to your protests, the pain only increased. You could feel the Omega senses taking over. Your wolf was going in heat. Please, Omega, don't take over. We're not safe here. You begged, fat tears leaving your eyes as you continued to clutch your stomach that was hurting by every passing second. You heard a rustle of leaves nearby. Your ears perked up at that sound and you immediately pushed yourself back in fear. Someone was near. You could smell them, a strong earthy scent mixed with the smell of rain. It was heady, very strong and consuming. Alpha, it was an alpha's scent. Who's there? You whispered in fear, ignoring the pain that was killing you. It was dark. The light coming from the moon was not helping much. You squinted at the bushes again, and that's when you saw a pair of glowing red eyes and your heart nearly slammed out of your chest. Alpha. And the beast revealed itself. A huge black wolf that wouldn't have been so easily spotted if it weren't for your desperate Omega that was begging for an alpha. Alpha, please. You were not seeing a dangerous rogue black wolf, a predator, but a potential mate that can take your pain away, that can satiate you, that can make you feel so good. The wolf drew nearer and you weren't cowering away now. You wanted him close for some reason. You wanted his touch. He stopped inches away from you. Your breath hitched when you looked at his ruby red eyes. You felt enchanted. The wolf stared at you and then started roaming his snout. You were positive he picked your arousal when his eyes glowed at the smell of slick leaking off you. Alpha, it hurts. Please help me. Take this pain away. You weren't yourself anymore. Your Omega was pathetically begging the nameless, faceless stranger to end the pain. In normal circumstances, your first instinct would have been to run away for your dear life. Please. Another wave of pain shot up your core, and you dropped to the ground once again. Your eyes tried to blink the fog that started to blind you, but the forces against you were strong. A blurred face of a man with dark hair and big doe eyes was the last thing you remembered before slipping unconscious. Time skip. You were being carried somewhere, wrapped in the arms of someone with a familiar earthy scent. His touch deliciously burned your body as if he was made for this. He probably transformed into his human form now. You nestled your face further into his warm, naked chest that felt like home. Your Omega preened with the thought of an alpha so close. You didn't feel the strong kicks of heat anymore. A while later, you found yourself in a cabin amidst the woods. The man carried you to a bedroom and tucked you in a bed. When he turned to leave, you held his hand and ignored the tiny sting you felt, a plea swimming in your eyes. "Where are you going?" You couldn't help but ask. He rolled his eyes and removed his hands as if your touch burned him. "This is my house, Omega. Where else would I go?" "Oh, I'm sorry," you said, slightly embarrassed. The man didn't even bother to indulge in your act anymore and left. "Great. Oh, God, what do I do?" When you woke up, you were feeling better. You weren't sure if the heat was gone or not. It usually lasted for 3 days. You sat up regardless, ignoring the pain from all the nightly activities, and looked around the room. Morning light filled the cabin, making you see everything clearly. It rained heavily last night. Thank heavens you ended up here, cause the odds of you surviving the wild were rather slim. You realized you weren't wearing anything. You fisted the dirty sheets and pulled it to cover yourself. The door opened to reveal the man once again. This time he came with some clothes. He didn't say anything, just placed the clothes on the bed while you looked at him with careful eyes. "Who are you?" You blurted out without thinking. The man stopped in his tracks and looked at you with a raised brow. "I mean, what's your name?" "How is that important to you?" "It's basic decency to know each other's name." "Where was this basic decency last night when you begged me to have you?" He said as if it was the most obvious thing ever, and you wanted to earth to swallow you whole. "You don't have to be so crass about it." You avoided his eyes and heard his "You wanted me to be crass about it last night?" he said again, and you wanted to vanish into thin air. You grabbed the sheets again and threw them over you. It was probably a bad idea to start this Q&A now. The shower is attached to this room. Just wear these clothes and come down for breakfast or whatever. Rude jerk. You pouted under the sheets and whipped your head out again when you heard the door shut. "Whatever. I need to shower and call my parents." After you were done showering, you got out of the bedroom, looking around at the place curiously. It was a beautiful cabin where the man lived. You walked around and stopped at the fireplace. There were pictures of the man on the wall, from his childhood to adulthood. For someone who liked to brood, he sure had a lot of smiling photos. The audacity. "Are you done snooping around?" You heard him speak behind you. You whipped your head back at him. He was standing there with crossed arms, looking like a hot meal. Your mouth ran dry, but at the same time, you couldn't miss him eyeing you wearing his big white shirt and pants. "No, I wasn't snooping. Your cabin is beautiful. The breakfast is in the kitchen," he said in a dismissive tone and disappeared. What the F is wrong with him? You frowned at his behavior and dragged yourself into the kitchen. He was already sitting eating his breakfast, a plate for you waiting on the table. You sighed and dragged the chair to sit. The food looks appetizing. You salivated as you dug in. It was delicious. You moaned as you took another bite. "Slow down. It's not going anywhere," he snorted with a small eye roll, though you caught the faintest hint of amusement in his tone. "This is freaking delicious," you said with a mouthful. The man shook his head. "There is more if you want." He pointed at the counter. "I don't usually eat breakfast for school, but this is too good." You missed the frown on the man's face. "You're a student?" He pointed out, and you stopped eating for a while. It was time to address the elephant in the room. "Yeah, I am in college," you said carefully, but it was enough to hit a nerve. The man stood up abruptly and started to pace around the kitchen with his hands rubbing his temple. "Tell me how old you are, and I want you to tell me the truth." "I told you I'm 22. Your real age, Omega?" He threatened in his alpha voice, and you submitted right that instant. "18. You whispered and watched him stop right on his tracks. In 2 strides, he was towering over you, his eyes burning with unadulterated rage. "Are you on pills? Tell me you're on pills, because I didn't just knot a young Omega over and over without protection." "I don't know what pills you are talking about," you said in a shaky voice. He shut his eyes to cool off her nerves. "What the F were you thinking? Are you that desperate to ruin your life? Did you even think once before asking me to F you? He lashed out and you held your breath all this while. You couldn't hear him berate you anymore. Can you please stop? Your voice cracked at the end as your eyes filled with tears. No, you listen to me, Omega. Your dumb decisions are going to ruin us both. You think I wanted this? You think I'm loving it here? You yelled with teary eyes. The words exploded out of you without restraint. You think I'm enjoying being somewhere in the midst of a jungle with a nameless stranger that keeps lashing at me every 2 seconds? The truth is, I don't. I never wanted any of this, but nature called and I gave in. I had no other choice anyway. I was lost and wanted to get home desperately, and this happened. Tell me who's to blame? You cried, tears coming down at full force. The man stood silent for a minute while you cried your eyes out. I lied because it was better to be with some alpha than to be torn apart by some other animal. At least, you're my kind, or so I thought. Look, I'm just worried you might get pregnant, he said calmly. I don't care if I get pregnant. I will abort the baby. Happy? That's what you wanted to hear, right? You yelled at him as you wiped your tears and stood up to leave. You rushed to the room where you spent the night and started to look for your bag. The man followed behind and watched you rummage through the room. If you're looking for the bag, it is right there. He pointed at the small night table and you didn't even thank him and went ahead to fetch it. You opened the bag hastily and fished out your phone. You tried to turn it on, but the battery was dead. Angry, you threw it back into the bag and collapsed on the floor, crying again. The man silently got near and kneeled before you. I have a charger if you want. He offered, and you didn't reply to him for some time, but he kept kneeling. When you looked up at him, he was staring at you with a soft gaze. I don't want any more favors from you. Your voice was small, stubborn. Let's put it that way. You charge your phone and you can contact your family then. How does that sound? Good riddance for you in that case, you said with a sad huff. The man sighed and tried to pull you up. You slapped his hands off you. Don't touch me. Oh, okay. Just sit on the bed at least. You're making me feel like I'm the worst host ever. Oh, F you a hole. You rolled your eyes as you begrudgingly climbed up the bed and turned you back to him. I'll get the charger, he said with a sigh and left shortly after. Why are handsome men always so rude? You grumbled, and as if on a cue, the man he popped his head back in, an amusing look on his face. You said something. Oh God, no. I heard something along the lines of being a handsome man. You're delusional. I didn't say anything like that. Sure, whatever floats your boat, sweetheart. He sing-songed and left for real. You rolled your eyes and ignored the tiny flutter your heart did at him calling you a sweetheart. You leaned back in the bed, thinking about everything. How would your parents feel? They must be so worried. And why did you feel so weirdly drawn to this jerk? Whatever it was, you couldn't wait to get the hell out of here. Give me your phone. He returned with a charger. You crossed your arms over your chest and didn't spare him a glance. You don't want to charge your phone? You didn't say anything. To hell with him if he found this annoying. You couldn't care less. Look, if this is about me calling you desperate, then I'm sorry, but I know you want to go home and so do I. Oh, now you want to get rid of me? You huffed in annoyance. The man sighed for the 1000th time that day. Of course you'd want to. Who would want a dumb 18-year-old Omega who couldn't even control her needs at their house? You can stay here if you want. Now you're just pitying me, you sobbed again. The man didn't say anything. He just reached for your bag and took your phone out and hooked it on a charger. He then sat on the edge of a bed, his back turned to you. Look, there is no use crying and moping now. All we can do is forget what happened last night and move on. You wrapped your arms around your knees and rested your head against it. You didn't want to talk about last night at the moment, as serious as it was. I can get you birth control pills if you want. Why are you so adamant on getting me birth control? You snapped, lifting your head slightly. I won't get pregnant, okay? I just had my periods a week ago. Besides, you are not even my mate, you said with a shrug, a hand flailing out trying to make a point. You learnt in school that sex with random alphas has a 30% chance of getting pregnant. With mates, the hormonal surge is so high that the chances are substantially increased. Oh, really? And what about mates? He quirked an eyebrow. 95%, you said carefully, a pout returning to your face. But it's not like we're mates, so why do you worry? The man stood up and you watched him prod his cheeks with his tongue. There was something that was troubling him, something that he wasn't telling you, but you couldn't exactly place what. Roads are blocked. It rained heavily last night. Even if you call your parents, they can't help you till another day or two. You can stay here. Use anything you want. He announced before leaving you alone again. Author's POV. The door clicked shut behind him, and 𝐁𝐄𝐓 let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He leaned against the wall outside the room, a shaky hand running through his hair in frustration. Every fiber of his being ached to go back in there, to pull her close and explain everything, but he couldn't. Not now. She didn't know. How could she? The bond was there, pulsing between them like a constant hum in the background, but 𝐻𝐿 had no idea what it meant. She didn't understand why she'd been so drawn to him, why her body reacted the way it did. But he did. From the moment he'd first laid eyes on her in that forest, he knew it was her. Mate. His true mate, the one chosen by her Moongoddess. The word crashed over him like a tidal wave and has been echoing in his mind ever since. His wolf had stirred instantly, pushing him toward her, wanting nothing more than to claim what was his, to make her his. But she was too young, too innocent, with her whole life laid ahead of her. She must have dreams, ambitions. Everything that didn't involve being tied to a rogue alpha, she barely knew. His chest tightened at the thought. If she knew the truth, if she realized they were mates, it would change everything. And he couldn't let that happen. Not yet. His hand clenched into a fist by his side. He was furious at himself, at the situation. He wasn't lashing out at her because he was rude or something. He was just frustrated with how things happened so fast, and he was even given the time to react. That still didn't change the fact that 𝐻𝐿 was still very much here, right in his house, angry and hurt. Yet he couldn't even give her the truth. He couldn't tell her that she wasn't just some Omega who wandered into his territory. She was his. She always would be. He inhaled deeply, desperately trying to steady himself. He couldn't risk it. 𝐻𝐿 deserved to make her own choices, to finish school, to live her life. If she knew they were bound by fate, that her heat had been triggered so violently because they were mates, she might feel trapped. And if she got pregnant, his heart sank. That would ruin everything for her. No, it was better this way. Better to push her away, to let her leave and never know. He would deal with the bond, no matter how painful it was to keep it hidden. He had to. For her. Stay safe, 𝐻𝐿, he whispered, even if it means staying away from me. Later that evening, you were leaning by the door watching rain pour outside. The man was nowhere to be seen. He left you a cup of coffee on the table, which you held in your hands. This place is so dreamy. I would love to live somewhere like this in the future. Probably have my family here too. 𝐻𝐿 would love it. You turned around to take a good look at the cabin once again. It really feels like a dream come true. Everything about here just feels like home. The smell of the forest, the crackle of wood in the fireplace, and that smell of rain, the smell of earth and rain. Something clicked inside your brain and you weren't ready to accept that. It smells like him everywhere. Why am I loving it so much? Why does it feel like this is where I belong? Or perhaps it is my inner Omega. You relished in the thought for a couple of minutes until the coffee inside the cup was gone. The weather was starting to get clear now. You spotted the man in the distance. The thin white shirt he wore was soaked through. It was clinging to his muscles like a second skin. His long black hair sticking to his forehead made him look even more hotter. He was carrying something in his hand. When he got nearer, you realized it was some animal that he hunted in the wild. He dropped the carcass on a wooden plank near the door, while you continued to look at his strength in awe. He was one strong man that was incredibly connected to his roots. He lived and thrived in the wild, unlike modern wolves. Did you hunt it by yourself? You couldn't help but ask. The man found you standing at the door, gaping at him like he grew another head. Yeah, it wasn't hard. He shrugged, like hauling a wild animal out of the woods in the middle of a storm was a casual Tuesday. It's easy to hunt when it rains. We don't do it like this in the city. We have shops and everything. I know. I came from the city. He started to work on the meat with the axe. You looked at him with pinched brows. Why? Why did you come here? Just felt like it. I was tired of the life there. It was boring and very repetitive. Being here in the wild is very refreshing. We were wild animals once. Our wolves love it when we connect to our roots. You don't miss your family? Not really. I was an only child. My parents were always out for business, never really tried for relationships, so I pretty much grew alone. What about your wolf? You're an alpha. He doesn't want to mate, like in your ruts. I've always spent my ruts alone. Wow, so you're really in no mood for having a mate. Not today, not tomorrow. I was in no mood. He left the axe on the plank and looked at you with a different gaze. Until just recently. What changed? You straightened up after leaning on your side for so long. Your arm was hurting. Everything, he said, and you felt your breath hitch. You kept thinking if it had something to do with you? That's very unspecific. You rolled your eyes and the man chucked at that. You felt your heart flutter when you saw his bunny teeth poking out as he smiled. You wouldn't like the details. He shook his head and resumed the chopping. You underestimate me, like a lot. You're 18 years old, practically a child. Age has nothing to do with a person's intellect, you said, offended. The man laughed again, and you stomped on your foot in annoyance. You're so mean. I hate you, you blurted out. The man froze. The smile from his face dropped like a hot potato. He whipped his head at you, and you tried to read his expression. There was a sad glint in his eyes that quickly disappeared. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. You didn't know why his eyes were affecting you so much that you felt the need to apologize. You saved me, fed me, clothed me. You didn't leave me to die yesterday. I can never be more grateful. The man wasn't saying anything anymore. It was like a switch turned on. You mentally facepalmed yourself for ruining the progress you made with him. I can cook for us tonight. How about that? You know, my mom loves my cooking. I make great steaks, kebabs, and even spaghetti with meatballs. You'll love them. You tried to cheer him up, but he wouldn't budge. It was like he slipped into trance. You didn't mean it when you said you hate him. It was a joke. Why was he so affected by it? I'll leave, you said carefully and walked to the kitchen. You were an expert in cooking. You quickly fished out everything you needed and began cooking. The man walked inside the cabin after a while just to get to his room. You sighed and continued cooking. After a while, he came out, showered and fresh. You had finished cooking by then and sat the steak, spaghetti meatballs, and roasted potatoes on the table. He quietly dragged a chair and settled down. Tell me how it tastes, you chirped, and he passed you a tiny smile before digging in. You impatiently waited for him to say something, anything. He hummed and looked into your eyes. That's delicious, he whispered, and you felt incredibly delighted just listening him say that. Noon can beat my cooking, you said smugly. The man shook his head in amusement and continued to eat. You're also great. I mean, the pancakes and eggs this morning were delicious. I need the recipes. You fished your phone out of the pocket, but the man quickly intervened. Maybe after dinner. You should eat first. Yes, you're right. I'm very impulsive at times. Also very impatient, too, you said as you placed your phone on the table and began to eat. I see your phone is charged. He raised an eyebrow. Did you call your parents? Yeah, I did. They were very worried, but then I mentioned you, minus the whole heat part, because I don't want them to know that we. You blushed hard, and the man smiled a little. Thank God he smiled. That was a welcome change. Anyway, they told me the roads are blocked due to landsliding, so we'll have to wait till tomorrow, you said in a single breath. Cool, he said while sipping the water. You guys didn't say much after that and continued to eat in silence. Thanks for the dinner. It was amazing. He wiped his mouth and hands with a napkin and got up. I'll do the dishes. You gave him a nod, and he picked the dishes and took them to the sink. You watched him as he took an apron and sexily wrapped it around his thin waist. He folded his cuff, which made the fabric strained against his bulging muscles. Your mouth ran dry, your breathing ragged. He didn't even do much yet. You were there, all hot and bothered. You left the plates be and practically bolted from the kitchen, desperately trying not to do something inappropriate. The second the door to the bedroom shut behind you, you leaned back against it, gasping for air. Why is my heart beating that fast? You placed a hand on your heart and felt the thump higher than usual. Why does he have to be so effortlessly sexy? God, YN. Get over it. You'll leave tomorrow. Can't afford crushes now. For goodness sake, you don't even know his name. Right that instant, something unexpected happened. The light went out and everything went pitch black. You shrieked and began to touch everything around you. You were afraid of the dark. It almost felt like you've gone blind. Oh my God, you repeated like a mantra. Hello, can you hear me? God, stupid wine, should have asked his name. You yelled, but heard nothing in return. You patted your pockets, heart sinking when you remembered you'd left your phone on the table. Great. Grumbling under your breath, you tried to walk, arms stretched out like a blindfolded kid playing a game, but it was so dark even the fireplace wasn't doing its job. Hello? Where the hell did you go in just 2 minutes? You grumbled, but then something flashed in your mind, his bunny smile. Bunny. Hey, Bunny. Bunny man, where did you disappear? You started carefully walked, but of course you had to hit your toe with some furniture which made you yelp. Ouch. You jumped around in pain, wailing loudly. A stream of curses flew out of your mouth. Ah! F this, son of a... You kept spewing curses. God damn it. This cursed jungle has only given me pain ever since I stepped here. Suddenly you bumped into a warm chest. Hands got wrapped around in your waist and you shut up that instant, the pain long forgotten. Can't handle a little pain, sweetheart? He snickered into your ears, hot breath hitting your ears, making chills run down your spine. Shut up. You grumbled as you wrapped arms in return and laid your head on his warm chest. It's crazy how he made you go through so many emotions all at once, but you couldn't deny one thing. You definitely had the hots for him. You blushed harder as you realized this and pressed your face further into his chest. You're warm. You called me a bunny. Yeah, you look like one. You know, with the bunny teeth and all. He hummed as you both stayed like this for a while, enjoying each other's warmth in a room with the only light coming from the fireplace. What happened to the electricity? The battery might have gone out of charge. Don't worry, it happens sometimes. I have replacements with me. I was going to change it, but then I heard you screaming and cursing. You blushed harder in embarrassment and didn't even reply. He continued to caress your back. Hey, I really didn't mean when I said I hate you back then. You're probably the kindest person I've met in my life, and I mean it. You whispered, and he hummed back, a calm scent wafting off him, making you feel further at ease. You can work a little on your temper, though. You made me almost cry this morning. Sorry about that. I was just worried about you. He continued to caress your back. It's crazy how all my life I was surrounded by betas and omegas. Never had an alpha near me. Never thought I'd see one in real life. Yet here you are. It's almost surreal. I still feel like my mom would just wake me up now for school, and all this would be just a dream. You were clearly thinking out loud at this moment, but when you felt a pinch on your waist, which almost made you yelp, you realize what you just said. This is very much real, sweetheart. Stop calling me sweetheart, though. You pouted, and the scent that wrapped immediately dampened. It makes me feel like you want me here. How could he tell you that it was taking every bit of his resolve to not scream how much he wanted you to be there, right between his arms? But he couldn't. It wasn't his decision. It was yours. He didn't comment on it as he pulled away and cupped your face. Stay right here and don't move. I'll be right back. He whispered, and you gave him a faint nod. You heard his footsteps retreating. You sighed and thought about everything. You just met this handsome, kind alpha that was incredibly generous and giving, and you meant it in every way, especially how he helped you with your heat situation last night. And you didn't know how you could ever move on from this. But you didn't know if that man wanted you here. The only concern he had so far was about your pregnancy. He never said you were not welcome there, but nothing changed the fact that he was a rogue wolf. He chose to live alone. You sighed when you realized your option. You had to leave. The power returned, and so did the man for a while. You silently walked to the bed and laid down. You turned to one side of the bed that faced the window. The moon was shining outside. You felt the bed dip after some time, and you realized that the man joined you. "You're sleeping?" he asked, but you didn't reply, trying hard to fake sleeping. The silence stretched on. Something inside you wouldn't settle, though. After a while, you slowly turned around to look at him once. Don't ask why. That exact moment, he turned his head too, as if he was never sleeping. Your breath hitched when your eyes met. You didn't know what took over you, but the next moment, you were on his lap, kissing him like there was no tomorrow. Time skip. Needless to say, the night turned out just as eventful as the previous night. You were positive that if you were not knocked up yesterday, you would be now. The shyness from the first night was gone, replaced by this newfound confidence that filled you to the brim. When you woke up to the man sleeping next to you, you felt so elated, like you just had found a new purpose in life. You were all smiles the whole morning. You both played around, exchanging shy smiles as you made breakfast together and did some gardening at the lawn outside. He then showed you around the entire cabin, and you guys talked about everything and nothing. Everything was perfect until you received a call. "Dad?" you said as your heart picked up pace. This was it. This little adventures of yours was finally meeting its end. "Honey, we're coming to get you. Please share your location with us." "Oh, okay, I'll do it," you said as your mood deflated. You looked at the man who was taking out another album from his collection. "Keep it back," you said as you shared the location with your dad. A smile slid off his face faster than you'd expected. "My dad is coming to pick me up. I'm leaving in a while." The man placed the album back and stood up. Damn, it went awkward super quick. "Do you want to pack your stuff?" "I didn't have much with me to begin with. The uniform is ruined. I'll have to get a new one," you said shyly, and the man scratched his neck in embarrassment. "I'm sorry about that." "It's all right. We were not ourselves back then." "Oh, all right then," he sighed. There was too much to say, but he couldn't. Neither could you. "I'll see you then." He tried to sound calm, but you could really hear the tremor in his voice. Your Omega was itching you to just go and kiss the hell out of the men and tell him to keep you here, but your brain said otherwise. You just settled down on the sofa and held your hair in frustration. A day and 2 nights with him, and you were already a goner. You wanted to scream at the unfairness of it all. The clock was ticking, and time was your worst enemy. Every minute felt like a ride to hell and back. You didn't know what would become of you once you stepped out of this cabin that gave you the experience of a lifetime. Will someone ever take care of you like he did? Hold you like he did? Touch you like he did? The clock was running against you. You stood up with a heavy heart and went to pack up your stuff once again. His white shirt was hung on a chair, and without thinking, you picked it up and stuffed it in your bag. You tied your unruly hair in a rough bun and looked at the mirror. You were trying so hard not to cry, but your traitorous Omega sent a flood of hormones through your system, making tears prick at the corners of your eyes. The wolf inside you was already howling in grief, mourning the separation from her alpha. A car horn broke through the stillness, and that's when you finally wiped your tears, picked your bag and flung it around your shoulders, and stepped out of the room, not before taking your phone out and clicking a picture of it. "Why in?" Your dad's voice came from the outside. "Are you inside this cabin?" You clicked a few pictures around the cabin before replying a loud yes. You looked to find the man nowhere. He probably didn't want to see you off. With a heavy heart, you stepped outside the cabin and saw your dad standing at a distance. When he saw you, he came running with a huge smile on his face. You practically flew into his arms, tears of relief falling off your eyes. "My baby, thank Moongoddess, you're all right. We were so worried." He pressed a kiss to your forehead, and you gave him a watery smile. "Dad, I'm all right. How are you? How is Mom? Oh, I'm fine now that I've seen you. Your mom wasn't feeling well, though. I had to force her to stay at home. He cupped your face, and he smiled big at you. Where is the man that helped you, though? Is he not around? Your mouth ran dry when your father curiously looked around to see a glimpse of the said man. Dad, he's probably busy doing his stuff. There he is, I assume. He looked over your shoulder with a big smile and immediately walked to the man to tackle him into a hug. Thank you so much for taking care of my daughter, young man. I'm not sure how I can repay you back. The man smiled at your dad and bowed before him in respect. Your heart swelled at this gesture. You wanted to cry so bad right then and there, but you didn't want your father to know. There's no need for that, sir. She's a lovely girl. Just take care of her, he said with respect and glanced at you slightly. Your heart skipped a beat when you looked at him. Your father patted his back and exchanged farewell with the man. He then walked back to you and wrapped an arm around you to go. After a few minutes of walking, you suddenly felt like you were forgetting something. That instant, you realized all this while you never once asked his name. How would you even remember him when you're gone? You stopped making your father give you a puzzled look. Dad, can you take my bag to the car? I think I forgot a little sometimes back there. I'll go get it real quick. All right, honey, just don't get lost now. He laughed a little, and you replied with a giggly, I won't. You ran and ran like there was no tomorrow. When you reached the cabin, you could see the man was still standing there looking at nothing at particular. When he felt you near, he looked back at you in what looked like a shock. You immediately jumped in his arms and kissed him in fervor. He immediately melted in your kiss and wrapped his arms around you. When you pulled away, there was a playful glint in your eyes. Aho, you were sending me away without a name? How will I remember your coconut head? You playfully swatted at his chest, making him smile a little. 𝐁𝐄𝐒? 𝐁𝐄𝐓. Your good name, please? Lien. You smiled at him. It was wonderful having you here, Miss YN, he said playfully, and you giggled once again. It was wonderful living with you, Mr. John. I hope we can do that again someday. Until next time, he said as he kissed your forehead. Until next time, you whispered back as you returned a kiss on his cheeks. Now go, your dad will be waiting. So desperate to get rid of me, huh? You said with a smirk, and 𝐁𝐄𝐒 waved a hand at that. I know you'll be back sooner than later. You're one delusional man, Mr. John. It's not healthy. We'll talk about that next time when you're here. You shook your head as you finally turned around your heels, not before giving him a cheeky wave, and left for real. Time skip. It had been 3 months already, and finals exams were already happening. You were so knee-deep in your studies, so swamped in your books that you wouldn't even come out to eat, which would often get you an earful from your parents. You would study all the time, go to college, give exams, return home, sleep a little, and back to books. Day in, day out. You didn't even realize that you had already missed 3 of your periods. The only thing you were concerned about was exams, and you wanted to do extra well. Part of the reason was also a certain bunny boy that you couldn't get off your mind, so you thought keeping yourself busy and studying would help you move on. Not knowing that a little piece of him was growing within you. Exams are important, but if I hear about you skipping another meal, I'm going to skin you alive. Your mom wasn't having it as she glared at you over breakfast, a slice of toast in your hand while you flipped through your notes for the millionth time. You hummed at her, "It's my last exam today, Mom. I'll get back to eating properly once I've finished," you mumbled through a mouthful, reaching for your phone as it buzzed. Gotta go. Mingyu is here to give me a ride." Mingyu was your male best friend. He was a beta, the only son of doctor parents. That beta boy, tall and handsome? What is he? Your secret boyfriend. She said playfully, and you rolled your eyes, picking up your bag. "We're just friends," you stated in a matter-of-fact style. "Besides, I'm not into betas." Exactly. Your type was strong, tall, and handsome alphas with an aura of power surrounding them. Bonus points if they had long, wavy hair, big doe eyes, and a bunny smile that could melt your insides. You waved goodbye to your mom and hurried out. Mingyu was already leaning against his Porsche, looking at his watch dramatically. There you are. Hurry. The roll call will start in like 5 minutes. He hopped inside and you followed suit. The exam would have been easy if you weren't feeling queasy throughout. You couldn't concentrate on the words. The words would blur sometimes and you would feel like passing out. You still managed to complete it one way or another. You picked up your stuff, feeling a strong headache coming. Mingyu was by your side in no time. Hey, you okay? You were dizzy throughout the paper. Had enough sleep? He wrapped an arm around to steady you. I don't feel good, Minnie. I have had these weird cramps for days. I think it's because I was skipping meals. Did you check with a doctor? No, I didn't. I didn't feel the need to. Let's check with the school doctor. She'll go through some primary evaluation. If everything's good, then we would go out and eat something. Exams are finished. We'll party. How does that sound? You weakly smiled at him, and he took you to the doctor. She helped you on the stretcher and did some examinations. Wait a minute. You're telling me you've been missing your periods, loss of appetite, and a significant weight loss? Something's not adding up. Scribbling something down on her clipboard before giving you a pointed look. Have you been sexually active these past months? You looked at her with shock. Mingyu suppressed a smile and looked away. I went into heat, like 3 months ago, you said shyly. Did you have someone that helped you through it? I'm not sure. How is that relevant? You were confused. The doctor placed the clipboard on the table and rubbed her temples. Sweetie, from what you're telling me and from what I've seen countless times before, my first guess is that you might be pregnant. You were crying. Your mom sat next to you as she held your hand. Honey, get a hold of yourself. You'll be fine. She kept rubbing your hand as you hiccup between sobs. I can't believe he is my mate. I'm pregnant with his child. He kept telling me to take birth control. I kept saying that I was going to be fine. You had told your mother everything, like everything, and somehow she was handling it way better than you ever could have imagined. Honey, if he is an alpha and you're his true mate, then this was supposed to happen. You were supposed to go there to find him and then to mate. It's a blessing, honey. You're carrying a moon child. How are you not mad at me? I'm 18. I'm pregnant with an alpha's baby. You buried your face in your hands and cried further. I'm a disgrace. No, honey, it wasn't your fault that you got lost that day. It wasn't your fault that you went into heat. It wasn't your fault if you asked him to help you. It was literally meant to happen. I'm glad 𝐁𝐄𝐒 didn't overwhelm you by telling you that you were his mate. He is so considerate. Wait, you're telling me that 𝐁𝐄𝐒 knew? Your eyes nearly popped out of your head, a deep frown taking over your face. You're weighted with bated breath as your mom continued. Of course, he'd know. Alphas are superior in every sense. They know who their mates are. They can smell them, both in wolf and human forms. I think he didn't want you to be trapped if he had revealed both things together, being his mate and also being pregnant with his child. What the hell? You stood up abruptly and held your hair in frustration. How dare he? He freaking knew all this while but didn't even bother to tell me. Did he want me gone that bad? After planting a whole child in me, he could even man up and take responsibility? Oh my God. And here I lost my sleep for him. Every freaking thing reminds me of him. I cry every night for him, but he was so eager to send me off that too with a child. Honey, no wolf, especially alphas, can bear the loss of their mates when they're pregnant. It's our nature. If he did that, then I'm pretty sure he had his reasons. He was a rogue wolf, Mom. The only thing they like is their own company. I'm sure he enjoyed my stay just because his body desires were fulfilled. When he was done with it, he let me go. Honey, are you even hearing yourself? This is not the 𝐁𝐄𝐒 you told me about? What do you mean? You're mad at him because he hid the truth from you, but that doesn't mean he was a bad guy like you're making him out to be. You're siding with someone you don't even know, Mom. I'm siding with the truth, honey. She sighed and got up. Just take a while and think about it. She patted you back and left. You huffed and plopped on the bed. Maybe it was your anger speaking. You knew Jungkook wasn't a bad guy, but why did he hide it from her? With these thoughts, you slept. The next morning, when you woke up, your mind was clear. You took a hot shower and spent a long time looking at your belly that had turned round, but you never paid much attention until now. You caressed it and felt the tiny flutter beneath your skin. There was life growing inside you. Mama loves you, baby. She loves you more than anything. She will put the entire world at your feet. You smiled at the tiny bump. Taking a deep breath, you braced yourself for the new journey. You knew what you were going to do. Mom, can you drive me to his cabin? I want to see him, you said seriously. Your mom nodded at you and picked her keys. The drive to Jungkook's place feels like it stretches on forever. The silence in the car thick and heavy. You sit in the passenger seat, your eyes unfocused as the blur of trees pass by. Your mom is quiet beside you, her hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than usual. The weight of what's coming presses down on you, making it hard to breathe. And your thoughts are all over the place, uncertain, confused, angry. What will you even say? What can you say? Every possible version of the conversation runs through your mind, but none of them feel right. Would he care that you're back? Would he even want to see you? The uncertainty gnaws at your insides, making your chest tighten more with every passing second. When the car finally pulls to a stop, your heart skips a beat. You sit there for a moment, staring out at the cabin. The place that used to feel like a safe haven now looks distant, unfamiliar. Memories rush over you, almost suffocating you with the intensity. Every laugh, every touch, every word you shared with him. You force yourself to move, stepping out of the car as the cool evening air hits your skin. Your mom stays behind, giving you space as you walk forward. Your eyes scan the yard, and then you see him. He's there, kneeling in the garden, his hands dirty from tending to the plants. He looks so peaceful, so unaware of the storm raging inside you. Something snaps inside you. You take a deep breath and march toward him, each step feeling heavier than the last. He looks up, and for a split second, there's surprise in his eyes, but it's gone too quickly. He stands up, wipes his hands on his pants, waiting. But you don't wait, you let it all out. How could you? The words come out sharp, your voice shaking with barely contained anger. How could you not tell me the truth? After everything, Jungkook, you just let me leave? Without saying anything? Jungkook flinched, but he stayed silent. He didn't move, didn't try to explain himself. He just took it. You knew I was your mate, you yelled, your voice rising as the anger boiled over. You knew from the start, and you said nothing. You let me walk away, and I've been tearing myself apart because of you. You didn't even realize your fists are balled up until you were hitting him squarely on the chest. Do you have any idea what I've been through? Do you even care? Your fists hit him again, harder this time. I've never, you choked on the words, tears threatening to spill. I've never cried this much in my entire life. Yet Jungkook didn't stop you. He just stood there, letting you hit him. Guilt written all over his face. Your hands beat against his chest over and over, but he made no move to defend himself. No words, no excuses, just silence. Finally, you lost your strength. Your hands fell limply at your sides, and you collapsed against him. Your body shook as sobs teared through you. You buried your face in his chest, unable to hold it in any longer. All the pain, all the heartache came pouring out of you in uncontrollable waves. Jungkook's arms wrapped around you, pulling you close. His touch was gentle, almost hesitant, as though he was afraid you might slip away if he held too tightly. His hand moved through your hair, and you felt his breath against the top of your head. I'm sorry, he whispered in a barely audible and regretful voice. I'm so sorry. You cried harder, your tears soaking his shirt. Your body shook as you clung to him. The weight of everything was just too much to bear. It felt like you were breaking apart, unraveling completely, and all you could do was cry. You have no idea, you whispered through the tears, your voice weak. No freaking idea how much you've hurt me. Jungkook held you tighter. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me. You stayed like this until your cries died down to small sobs. Your anger had subsided. The only thing that remained was a small, stubborn pout. You better keep your promise, John. This time I'm not letting you off the hook that easily. You pulled back with a small frown. What do you mean? He faked innocence. I'm staying here with you. You crossed your arms over your chest. I want you to claim me properly with mating bites and all. No running away now. Are you sure? Like, what about school? I'll take a year off and study for the medical school entrance test. 𝐁𝐄𝐒 beamed at you and pulled you into another hug. You had almost forgotten about your mom until you heard her voice. Oh, this is my mom. You gesture back, realizing she's been standing there all along, a quiet observer to your emotional exchange. 𝐁𝐄𝐒 smiled and gave your mom a firm handshake. Mom, this is 𝐁𝐄𝐒, my alpha, my mate. Such a pleasure of seeing a handsome alpha. Your kind is really rare to come by. You flatter me, Mrs. Lee. I'll say people like you are rare to come by. Nonsense. She waved a dismissive hand. I see 𝐻𝐿𝐿's clearly made up her mind. She was crying all day when she found out that she's pregnant. Took her long enough. 𝐁𝐄𝐒 glanced at you with a teasing smile. You gave him an eye roll. Take care of her as I ask you, you said, and 𝐁𝐄𝐒 gave her a reassuring nod. 𝐻𝐿, come see off your old lady, will you? You stepped away to see her off. I trust him, 𝐻𝐿. I trust you too. Stay happy. I'll miss you, sweetheart. Don't worry about your stuff. I'll send it over tomorrow, all right? Mom, you're the best. You gave her a tight hug, which she returned. Tell Dad that I'll be staying here for some while. I might return with him someday, maybe, but I'll miss you. I'll miss you guys a lot. Don't worry about us, honey. We'll be fine. She kissed your forehead and you thanked her before she left. You looked back at 𝐁𝐄𝐒 after your mom had walked off. Crossed arms, eyes gleaming with something unreadable. So, Mr. John, like I told you, I cried a lot. I want compensation. Yes, Your Majesty. How do you suggest we start? A smirk curled on your lips as you grabbed his hand and dragged him back into the cabin, the same room where it all started.